So you want to get into deep learning, but you don't know where to start. If that sounds like you, you're in the right video, and we're about to talk about how you can now get into deep learning in 2026. Hi, my name is Roberto, and I'm a master's student doing research and trying to learn deep learning. And I would love to share with you guys some tips that have helped me to get to where I am today, and honestly share how I am going about it. So maybe you guys can also learn about deep learning in 2026. So before we can even master anything, we first have to learn this said thing, right? And so what is actually learning something? So I think this definition puts it quite well, but learning is a continuous, active process of acquiring new knowledge, behaviors, skills, attitudes, or preferences through experience, study, or instruction. I've highlighted continuous and experience because I think this is the best part about learning, that it's continuous. So you don't just learn something and never again. I think learning in 2026 looks like you continuously, every couple of days or every day, dive deep into something for maybe an hour, 30 minutes, however long, and through experience. So it's not just reading about something or watching videos about something, but it's building that said thing that you read about or putting into action all the things that you study. So, how do we actually go from learning to becoming an expert at something, whether it be deep learning, math, piano, etc.? This tweet by Andre Karpathy, who, if you guys know, he's quite famous deep learning guy. He led the autopilot team at Tesla, and he worked on OpenAI as a co-founder. But anyway, he lays it out in a pretty simple like guide where there's three steps. So one, you iteratively take on concrete projects and accomplishment in a depth-wise aspect, where you learn on demand rather than bottom-up breadth-wise aspect. And we'll go into some details of what those two learning styles are later. But then the second step is to teach and summarize everything you learn in your own words. So let's say after you finish those projects, maybe you come together in your journal and write down what you learned, why you did this said project, how to expand this. But basically, you want to know that you basically learned and you were able to like properly digest that information that you get gained. And the third is to only compare yourself to younger you, never to others. I know it's really hard in the age of social media, but I think it's really important because, the you from 3 months ago didn't know as much as you from today, right? But in your head, you're like, but this AI researcher from this place or that place learned this same concept really fast. And well, that's true. But what happens is that they had other resources. They might have had certain opportunities that you don't know. So you can never compare yourself to others, only to yourself. And so, in my opinion, there are two different types of learning, as we have talked about before. So, first is a bottom up, breath-wise approach, where you start at the lowest possible or like the most atomic portion of a specific topic. So, for example, for deep learning, is like whatever came before neural networks, and you build your way up to where you want to work at or what you want to learn. So, in this case, our goal is to learn about vision transformers. And if we were to do it bottom up, we would start by first learning whatever came before neural networks, then studying multi-layer perceptrons, then studying recurrent neural networks, then studying long short-term memory networks, and then you see the logic. You basically work your way up breathwise to the vision transformer. I've actually fallen victim to this approach, and I'll show you in a couple of minutes why this can be negative and why this can be positive. But the approach that Karpathy was talking about is a top-down, in-demand one. So this top-down, in-demand approach to learning is actually very intuitive, and it's where you define the project based on your goal. So in this case, I want to learn about vision transformers. So what would be the best way to do it? It would be to build one, right? And so ideally, the first step in this would be to define the project, how I'm going to build it. And in this case, in order to properly build a vision transformer, you have to read the vision transformer paper, right? If you've never seen Transformers, if you've never seen the concept of attention, if you've never seen the concept of an encoder, you're gonna have a hard time actually understanding the paper, but that's okay because that's why you do it in demand. So you read the paper, and as you go through it, you'll see concepts such as attention, the attention mentioned in the um, 2017 Transformer paper that led up to the Vision Transformer. And well, you don't understand this, so you're gonna go and read that attention paper, come back when you understand it, and just keep going, right? And you're going to be doing this in demand. By learning on demand, you're basically guaranteeing that you only learn the stuff you need to get to your goal. So by learning about, only the things you need to build a vision transformer, you're going to guarantee that you don't get sidetracked or spend 80% of your energy studying recurrent neural networks, where in reality, they don't add much context to what a vision transformer actually is. So to put into context what I was saying earlier about how I've made mistakes in learning, I'm going to talk to you by my actual example of how I've been going about learning deep learning. So for some background, I'm really interested in computer vision, specifically within segmentation. And so I thought the most obvious way to learn more about segmentation would be to deep dive into Segment Anything, which is Meta's Segment Anything model. Um, and I'll save details for later. But basically, I wanted to read this paper, rebuild it from scratch, and I'm still in that journey. But anyway, if I go into this paper, there's gonna be a lot that I don't understand. So, for example, in my logic, I started reading this paper, and when I got to this section, I realized I had no clue what this is talking about. I had no clue what an encoder is, what a decoder is, and specifically an image encoder, right? So my next thought was, okay, if I don't know what a masked autoencoder is, I could just go to the masked autoencoder paper right here, and through this, I would just, recursively work my way down. Basically, this is that, like, I guess seems like a top-down approach, but it's actually a bottom-up, right? Where I'm basically trying to get as much breadth as possible. Then I came here and realized, okay, I have an architectural gap because I don't know what a vision transformer is. So then again, I went to the vision transformer paper here, but I didn't know what a vision transformer was or a transformer in general. So I had to go all the way to this attention is all you need paper to understand what a transformer was. But when I read this abstract, I was like, I don't know what sequence to sequence is. I don't know what RNNs are. So I had to go, back to even this paper, which introduced the concept of attention originally, and that's something for a separate topic. But um, like if you can follow the pattern, you'll see that I am just going down a rabbit hole, right? I eventually ended up just reaching all the way to like the 2003 Benjo et al. Multi-layer perceptron paper. And, this is obviously bad because I'm trying to only learn about vision transformers, so there's no really a reason as to why I should learn about LSTMs or RNNs. Like obviously there is because it's given me a lot of hindsight into like why a transformer is so good. A transformer is good because you can parallelize the training that a RNN couldn't, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, to build a vision transformer, I didn't really need to read those papers, right? Um, Now, it might depend on your goal, and we'll see that in the next part of the video. But basically, my goal is to become an AI researcher. And so I thought that it would be helpful because as I build these projects and I read these papers, I am actually filling in the gaps of my knowledge, especially because I am still quite new to the field, right? But for you, this might be different because your goal might not to be an AI researcher. And so, it kind of in this last part, I want to talk about like how I would go and how I'm actually going about deep learning. And this, I just mentioned to you guys how I actually was going about it, but this is me going forward in 2026 onwards. So first, obviously, I want to make a disclaimer that you should know how to program, specifically in Python, because this is how most of the deep learning applications are built. But before you can do anything, you should know how to program, and you should be familiar with, at least the basic machine learning concepts, like what is training, what is the whole point between regression, classification, etc. But once you understand that, then I would tell you to pick a topic that you're interested in. For me, it's vision, but you could be natural language processing or diffusion, etc. And then think of a hands-on project or idea that you'll execute on. You should never learn just for the sake of learning. You should have another reason to wanting to learn and also master deep learning. So in this case, you want to get a job in deep learning, you want to become an AI researcher, you want to do this as a hobby, or you're doing this because of school. But you should always have another reason because learning for the sake of learning will never get you anywhere. Then again, you want to start top down on demand by filling gaps wherever you might find them. You want to read papers, ask LLMs. And I want to make a disclaimer at this point because when I say ask LLMs, I mean to just chat with them and, treat it like it was another human, another person with more experience than you. I want to advise you to not rely on LLMs for coding too much. This is not software engineering where the speed at which you put out products or anything matters. here you want to learn. And I don't think that you can fully learn by just outsourcing your coding or your thinking to an LLM. So I want you to be careful here and just talk to these LLMs as partners to, discuss research, think of different, you know, reasons why you don't understand something, etc. Fourth is that along the way, I want you to share your progress with the world, whether it be YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, friends, etc. And the main reason for this is not actually the recognition. The main reason for this is actually because you want to get feedback. If you don't get feedback, which obviously you can get from an LLM, but ideally experts in the field or other friends that are also learning deep learning would be better. Is because if you don't so the reason as to why you need feedback and why it's so important is because you will not learn if you don't get feedback. You might think that you're doing something correctly and you're probably not, especially as a beginner. And so feedback is the way to correct this. I've done this by posting on Reddit a couple times or posting on Twitter asking about certain things, and I've gotten really good feedback that's helped me learn. I've also looked at other people's implementation of maybe the same product. So I've built a transformer from scratch and I looked at other people's implementation, which taught me about like config files and stuff like that. And finally, the most important step in learning is to always stay curious. Because in 2026, everyone has access to all this information, all these tools. But what differentiates people is their curiosity. How motivated are you to keep learning every single day, not just every couple of months? Because this AI field moves on too fast. And if you're not curious and if you don't stay learning, you will get left behind, unfortunately. And so those are all the tips I have for you. As I just want to make it known that I'm still a beginner in deep learning as well. I'm nowhere near an expert. I want to become an AI researcher, but this channel is going to be kind of how I document this journey. So if anything from this video inspired you, please make sure to leave a like down below, subscribe because there's going to be more content coming 2026. To keep you guys updated with the modern standard of deep learning. And so, yeah, hope you guys have a nice day.